أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. We are starting another day, another class of Al-Ajirromyya. Let me quickly share my screen so you guys can see it as well. Okay. So we have gone over the mansubat. We went over the mansubat of nouns, but not in detail. We just mentioned all of the nouns that become mansub, if you recall last week. Inshallah, this week we will dive into every single one of them in detail. We'll starting with meaning this week, today, and for the next few weeks, we'll dive into every single one of them in detail. We will start with the object. We said the object is one of the mansub nouns. So inshallah, today we will begin with the object. The author says, rahimahullah, باب المفعول به وهو الاسم المنصوب الذي يقع به الفعل نحو ضربت زيدا وركبت الفرس، وهو قسمان ظاهر ومضمر. الظاهر ما تقدم ذكره، والمضمر قسمان متصل ومنفصل. فالمتصل 12 وهي ضربني وضربنا وضربك وضربك وضربكما وضربكم وضربكن وضربه وضربها وضربهما وضربهم وضربهن. والمنفصل 12 وهي إياي وإيانا وإياك وإياك وإياكما وإياكم وإياكن وإياه وإياها وإياهما وإياهم وإياهن. Going back to the translation on the slides, the author says the object is the mansub noun with which the verb action takes place. What does that mean? Yes, go ahead.
Did we finish from slide 119? Like, I think we stopped at slide 119.
Did we?
We stopped at number 8. Noun
of good, very, very good catch. Okay, so inshallah we'll go over the rest of them. I was under the impression that we had completed them. Jazakumullah khairan. So we stopped at number 8, right? So we are okay. So just quickly for those who are watching the video, we did mention briefly some of the mansub nouns, but we did not complete all of them. So inshallah we'll just go over every single mansub noun that we have not gone over so far, not in detail, just briefly, and then if we have time the class, we can continue with talking about the object in detail. But so we had left off at number 9, which is al-munada. So al-munada is the called, the one who you call upon. For example, in English, you would say "O Zaid," right? That O, what does that O indicate? That O indicates that you're calling Zaid. You want his attention. You want him either to come to you or listen to you, or you had asked him for something. You're expecting something from him. So that is called the munada, the person you call upon, or the whatever it may be, what you call upon, right? In Arabic, a good example would be for example, we hear this, we say this often, right? Ya Allah. Ya Allah, right? Ya Allah. And when we call upon Ya Allah, when we say Ya Allah, we want something from Allah that only Allah can accomplish, right? But it's not specific. Who you call is not specific to Allah, depending on what you're asking, what you need. For example, if you need some, some assistance with something, if you're a blind man and you're crossing the street, you say, Ya rajulan khud biyadi. Oh man, take my hand. That's an example that we'll go over later. Or if you want something from Zaid, for example, you want some money from him. You say, "Oh Zaid, give me some money," right? So it doesn't have to be only calling upon Allah, depending on what is being asked. Obviously, if the thing that you're asking can only be answered and given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should not be calling upon anyone other than Allah, because then that would go under the category of associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he is one in his actions as well, right? So meaning he's the only one who is the doer. So now, wal munada, ya Allah. So but when does the munada become mansub? The munada becomes mansub only when you associate just simple example. There are different cases, but a simple example of when the munada, or meaning the person who you call, becomes mansub is when you associate that the munada, or the one who is called, to something else. For example, you say, if you, for example, if you want, if someone's name is Abdullah. If someone's name is Abdullah, Abdullah means the servant of Allah, right? You're associating the servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that case, you would say, Ya Abdullah. In that case, the Abd would become mansub, right? Why? Because again, as I said, one of the places where the munada, or the called upon, becomes mansub is if the called upon is attached to something else. In this case, what is abd attached to? Can anyone tell me? What is abd associated to? Allah, exactly. He is associated to Allah. Oh, servant of Allah. So let's only keep this example, because when you say Allah, because Allah Azza wa Jalla is not, you don't associate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to anything. He is just, you just say Ya Allah. In that case, Allah does not become the word Allah does not become mansub, because it is not associated or attached to something else. It is in that case, it is actually it gets a dhamma. So that is why we will not this example. I just to give you this example to let you know what munada means, the called upon. Does that make sense? Can we move on to the next one?
Oh, brother, so yeah, it made sense.
Okay. والمفعول من أجله. The next one is المفعول من أجله, which basically, which is also an object, but in Arabic we distinguish between different different types of objects. You know, some objects are the action is being performed upon, right? Some objects you're performing the action with. Some objects and some we call this also as an object if you're performing the action with someone else, so that in the company of someone else, that someone else becomes also maf'ul. So there are different types of maf'uls in Arabic, so just you don't get confused. But each maf'ul has has a distinct characteristic, which we will talk about. And for example, in this case, al-maf'ulu min ajlihi, the distinct characteristic of al-maf'ulu min ajlihi is that the action is performed for its sake. For its sake. For example, if I say, if I say ضربت or ضرب زيد عمرا تأديبا. Okay, the translation of this is Zaid hits Amr to teach him manners. Or let me say, yeah, to teach him manners. So in this case, in Arabic, you would call the manners part an object as well. You would call it al-maf'ul. Meaning, and ta'deeban, have you guys heard of the word adab? Adab, do you guys ever say in Bangladesh, do you guys ever say be adab?
I heard but I forgot what it meant.
Yeah, so ta'deeb
in
and adab, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yes, same here in Bangladesh. Like Vyadab, we say like someone with manners. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So ta'deeban here it comes from that word, which means manners. Right, which means manners. So here ta'deeban becomes maf'ulu min ajlihi. In Arabic we call it al-maf'ulu min ajlihi. Why did Zayd hit Amr? Why did Zayd hit Amr? To teach him manners. For manners, you could say for man. He hit him for manners, right? So the object for, and this is the keyword, the object for which the action is performed. In this case, what is the action what is hitting performed for? What is the purpose of hitting here?
To teach him manners.
To teach him manners. Yeah, so manners would be maf'ulu min ajlihi. And that is why it is mansub, as we said. This one takes obviously. Go ahead. Yeah.
There was actually a word in Somali. It's pretty much called Elabielo, and it's pretty much means the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Somali comes from a different branch, but I think Bangladeshi and Persian and Urdu, they're very similar because they are related languages. But Somali, I think it's more closer to where you call them. What's the language spoken in Ethiopia? Amharic. Do you guys remember? I forget the name.
I believe that's what it was called.
So that Somali is more related to those languages in that area. So the similarities shared between Somali and Indo-European languages like Persian, Kurdish, Bangladeshi, Urdu. I believe Bangladeshi is. So what's the language? What's the official name of the language you guys speak in Bangladesh, Brother Fahd?
We call it Bangla.
Bangla, yeah. So Bangla. These are all. So the only similarity you will find between Somali and these other languages that I just mentioned is the influence of Islam and Arabic. And adab and ta'dib is in Arabic. That is why I asked whether in Somali it is called the same thing. Maybe I thought maybe it has been transferred to Somali as well from Islam, from Arabic. But perhaps that's not one of the words that has been transferred.
I believe that they say that I think it was like 40% of Somali has that of Arabic.
Yeah. I think Somali also has a lot of Arabic in it. Okay, so the next object is al-maf'ulu ma'ahu, which means the object with which in the company of which the action is performed. The translation becomes very long, but that's nothing we can really do about it. So, for example, if I say the famous example that we read in the book, استوى الماء والخشبة. So in the Nile, if you go to Egypt, this is a saying that at least maybe not the younger generation, but the old generation would recognize. There was a tree in the Nile that was used as the measurement, and whenever the water of the Nile reached this tree, reached the type of, meaning the tree and the Nile reached the same level, that would indicate that there is a lot of water in the Nile. So استوى الماء والخشبة means the water and the tree reached the same elevation. Okay. The water reached the same elevation with the tree. Let me translate it that way. The water reached the same elevation with the tree. Okay, the water reached the same elevation with the tree. Let me just quickly drag this down so you guys. So what does this mean? The water reached the same elevation. So the water has reached a certain elevation, right? In the so what is it that with which the water has reached the same elevation? That's the question to you. What is it with which the water has reached the same elevation?
When it's like the same elevation as the tree, right?
Yeah. So the tree is is in this case the tree would be maf'ulu ma'ahu, meaning the object with which the action is performed. The object which you guys can kind of say the which with which the action is shared, right? The action with which the action is shared. Let's translate it that way. The action It's shared. So in this case, al-khashaba. What's the inflection of al-khashaba? Al-khashaba. It is mansub, right? Because it is it falls under the category of al-maf'ulu ma'ahu, the object with which the action is shared, right? In this case, the reaching the same elevation is shared with what? It's shared with by the water with the tree. Does that make sense? Now this is a bit. I think this is one of the most complicated objects that we will talk about in Arabic. That is why when we go in detail, when we dedicate the whole class to this object, inshallah, will become much more clear, inshallah. So the next, the predicate of Kana and her sister and her crew, her sisters. The predicate of Kana and her likes. For example, you say, you should already recognize this. Kana Allahu Ghafuran Rahima. Allah was Ghafuran Rahima. He was Ghafuran Rahim. In this case, what is the predicate of Kana? It is Ghafuran Rahim. Ghafuran and Rahima, and that is why both of them are mansub, right? The next one is the noun the noun of inna and her likes or her sisters. For example, you should remember this example as well. Inna Allaha Ghafurun Rahim. In this case, Allah is mansub. Why? Because Allah is the noun of inna, is the ism of inna. Is the subject of inna. I'm not spending too much time on this because we've gone over this many times, right? So in this case, we would say the subject of inna and her likes. And tabi'u lil mansub, the followers of the mansub noun, the followers of the mansub nouns. And basically, this it's the same followers that we discussed for the marfu' nouns. What are the four followers that we discussed? The adjective, the conjoined, right, conjunction, the noun that is conjoined, the emphasis, and the replacement, right? So those are the remaining ones that we'll go over, and these should already be, you should already be very familiar with these. So the emphasis, and the last one is the replacement. The emphasis, like you would say رأيت رجلا عالما. Okay, I saw a knowledgeable man, right? This aliman is the adjective, that is why it is mansub. The ataf, you would say رأيت زيدا وعمرا. Right, Amran is conjoined, is added to Zaid, right, with a waw, with a conjunction. So that is why Amran also becomes mansub. Tawkid emphasis, for example, you say Ra'aytu Zaydan nafsahu, right? The nafsahu, if you guys remember nafsahu, nafs is one of the words used for the emphasis, and in this case it is mansub. Quickly, let's translate these. Ra'aytu rajulan aliman. I saw a knowledgeable man. رأيت زيدا وعمرا. I saw Zaid and Amr. رأيت زيدا نفسه. I saw Zaid himself. And the last example that we give is for replacement, which we say for example, the example that we gave last time was one of the examples that we gave was I ate the bread, half of it. Right. In this case, half of it is the replacement. أكلت الخبز نصفه. So نصفه, which is half, in this case is mansub. Right. And this should all review for you because we've already gone through the adjective, the conjoined, the emphasis, and the replacement in detail in the previous classes. But anyhow, I think those are the remaining ones. We can continue next week, I think, because it's already we've gone over time for today. But inshallah, next week we will go over what I thought we were going over this week, which is the object, meaning going over the object in detail. Inshallah. Do you guys have any questions before we conclude?
No.
No, everything's clear?
Wait, I actually have one.
Okay. What is your question?
Had to do with the example of what was it? The water reached
Okay.
the same elevation with the tree.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Like it got to that point. Like in Egypt, like water gets to the elevation of the tree. That's interesting thing. Well, it relates to the example that you gave.
Yes. So
again a little bit better.
it's hard to hear you, brother Fadluddin. Can you repeat your question?
Sorry. It has to do with the example of in that case with the object for the water reach the same elevation with the tree.
Okay, so this one. Okay, so what is the question?
I'm trying to understand like the correlation between that example and what we tried to learn with it.
Yeah, so this example, like I said, this is one of the complicated, one of the harder object, types of objects that you will have to learn in Arabic. And basically, the maf'ulu ma'ahu, and the reason we're mentioning it in this chapter is because it is also mansub, right? It is also mansub. So in this case, al-khashaba, if you pay attention, al-khashaba has the inflection of it has a fatha, and we've already studied that for a singular noun, a fatha indicates what? It indicates nasab. It indicates that is mansub, right? So that's from a high level, right? This word has the inflection of nasab, So that is why we are studying it under the chapter of mansub nouns. Okay. Now the second, so the second or a more detailed answer as to what this exactly means, right? So literally, if I try and translate it, this means the maf'ul, or the object with which the action is performed, with which the action is shared. So maybe that may be a better word. With which the action is shared. Now this is just one example, and inshallah when we go in detail I will give you many examples which will make it much more clear, but just for the time being, know that this object is something with which the action is performed, right? So it is not something for which the action is performed, like the previous one, right? In the previous one, you're performing the action for manners, right? To teach Amr manners. Here, in this case, the action is performed with this thing, whatever it may be, whether it's an object or a person, right? So that's the difference between this object and this the previous object. And the first object is the object upon which the action is performed, right? The object upon which the action is performed. And when I say the first object is the first type of mansub noun that we went over, which was here, right? Al-maf'ul bi akrama Zaydun Amran. Zayd was generous to Amr. So generosity was performed upon with an action, if you think of it as an action, upon Amr. So Amr was the receiver of this generosity, right? Amr, in other words, Amr made the generosity of Zayd possible, right? If Amr was not there, this action would not exist, would not come to reality.
I gotcha. Would me giving da'wah to somebody be under this category or no?
Under the category of which one?
That example, because like you giving somebody charity would be an action.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So you said yeah. So if you call someone towards something, then that person would be maf'ulu bihi.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think I understand better now.
Okay. Yeah. Inshallah, we'll go over this in more detail. Especially like I said, the last one, 11, or al-maf'ulu ma'ahu, the object with which the action is shared or performed. That one requires a bit more explanation, which I don't think we have time in this class to do that. So inshallah, we will continue next week. If there are no more questions, we will conclude the class.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.